Welcome to day 27 of the 30-day holiday video challenge. Today we're making a fabulous cake for Christmas. Hi there foodie friends, my name is Carly and welcome to my channel Adventures in Yum. Before we get into today's video, I have a passion for learning about creating and trying new foods, drinks, and especially desserts. If you want to join me on my yummy adventures, and especially during this challenge, then please make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so that you'll know when I upload new videos every week. Now, let's get into today's video. First, we're going to whip up the ganache fillings. We're starting with our dark chocolate ganache, which is simply a 2-to-1 ratio of chocolate to cream. In a microwave-safe bowl, we add 1 cup or about 168 grams of dark chocolate, and then we add a half cup or about 118 milliliters of heavy whipping cream. We heat this in the microwave for about 1 minute and then stir. We want to make sure that all the chocolate is completely melted, so if there are any pieces of chocolate remaining, heat it again in increments of 15 to 20 seconds until completely smooth. I like to add an optional little pinch of salt to the ganache, and then we mix that in, cover the bowl with some plastic wrap, and press that onto the top of the ganache to prevent a skin from forming. We let that set in the refrigerator for at least a couple of hours. When getting ready to stack the cake, we also want to make sure to allow this mixture to come to room temperature, so keep that in mind. Our second ganache is a white chocolate peppermint ganache. We prepare it the exact same way, but this time we're using a 3-to-1 ratio of white chocolate to cream. We start with 1 cup or about 168 grams of white chocolate, and we add a 1/3 cup or about 79 milliliters of heavy whipping cream. After heating it and making sure that all of the white chocolate's melted, we add 1 teaspoon of peppermint extract and our optional pinch of salt. Once again, we cover the bowl with some plastic wrap and press that onto the top of the ganache to prevent a skin from forming, and let that set in the refrigerator for at least a few hours. Second, we assemble this cake. We start by adding a dollop of buttercream to act as the glue to keep the cake on the cake board. I'm using my trusty Swiss meringue buttercream recipe, which is linked in the video and in the description. Then we add one of our leveled 6-inch chocolate cake layers. My recipe video is also linked in this video and in the description. We then use a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1A tip to pipe a nice thick ring of buttercream along the inner perimeter of the cake layer. If you have a really soft filling, you may need to pipe 2 rings. We then add some of our room temperature dark chocolate ganache and use an offset spatula to smooth it into an even layer. Next, we sprinkle some of our crushed peppermint candy pieces and then add some of our peppermint white chocolate ganache and use an offset spatula to smooth that into an even layer as well. I didn't let this sit in the refrigerator for nearly as long as I should have, which is why it has more of a runny consistency. We then repeat this process by adding a second cake layer, ring of buttercream, dark chocolate ganache, peppermint candy pieces, peppermint white chocolate ganache, and the last layer of cake. Once we place our top cake layer, we add some buttercream and use an offset spatula to spread that into a thin, even layer on the outside of the cake. After that's done, we pop that into the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes to chill. Third, while the cake chills, we're working on our fondant decorations. We're rolling some fondant into long, skinny ropes and then cutting them into even pieces. I also rolled some thin ropes of red and white fondant and twisted one of each together to shape them into little candy canes. We're also making a thick rope of white fondant and then adding alternating pieces of red and white skinny ropes to make little peppermint candies. Before cutting it, we place this in the refrigerator for a while to firm up, which will make the slicing a little bit easier. I also took each one and made sure to smooth the sides and shape it into a circle. We're then rolling out some red fondant and using this awesome roller to cut it into 1.5 inches or 3.81 centimeter wide strips. We then roll out some black fondant, but still keep it a little thick because we'll be rolling it out a little bit more. To make sure the surface doesn't dry out, we pat it with a damp paper towel. We're now adding our candy cane pieces, peppermint candies, and finally little dots of white and red fondant. The reason I chose this color scheme is because while I love traditional Christmas colors, a gorgeous deep black background makes the red and white pop so beautifully. This fondant design is actually inspired by some of my favorite Christmas wrapping papers. While we work on that, I saw this really cool fondant covered Halloween cake video on TikTok and immediately wanted to try this amazing technique because it looked like wrapping paper to me. The cake artist is Kyung Bell of Kyung's Cakes and Crafts on TikTok and YouTube, and she makes this technique look so easy. Seriously, go check out her page. Her cakes are so cute. We then use a rolling pin or a large fondant roller to basically press the decorations into the black fondant and roll it out a little bit more. And then we are ready to transfer it. But before I show that, I'm going to share my first attempt. My heart hurt seeing the black fondant tear and fall down. This first experience taught me just how easy Kyung makes it look in her videos. Before we finish this cake, if you're getting value out of this video, then please make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about my latest video. And here's the second and final attempt. I laid it on top and saw that it wanted to start tearing again, but I was determined to make it work. So I worked on smoothing the fondant down the sides, which is when I realized the fondant was still too thick and it wouldn't be able to completely smooth down on the sides like it usually does. Seeing this, I decided to cut away some of the thick pieces of fondant and smooth it with a fondant smoothing tool. Next, I added a strip of red fondant onto the cake. It was a little too thick, so I think in the future I would make it 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters instead of the 1.5 inches or 3.81 centimeters. I then layered a second piece of fondant in the opposite direction. I decided to add another strip around the base of the cake to cover up those imperfections at the bottom of the fondant. Finally, we're making the topper by taking those extra strips of red fondant, cutting them into squares and then triangles. We then take each triangle and start to roll it just like this. We then make a bunch of these and layer them on top of the center of the cake. We use a food brush to add a tiny bit of water to act as the glue for the pieces and just continue to layer those pieces until it looks like this. And there we have our Christmas present cake. I think my favorite part is actually the bow topper. I know I definitely need to keep challenging myself and practicing more fondant techniques, but I'm so happy that I gave this technique a try. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. You can also find this Christmas cake on my website, adventuresinYum.net. The link is in the description below. Make sure to come back tomorrow for day 28 because we're making more hot chocolate bombs. If you're interested in checking out some of the products that I used in this video, please make sure to check out the video description below for their Amazon links. Thank you so much for joining me today, foodie friends. I'll see you next time for another holly jolly yummy adventure.